I want to start by offering a really heartfelt divine blessing for your day and for the week you have ahead of you. May you find, clarity and peace and just a deeply grounded strength as you navigate whatever challenges are on your plate right now. It is a joy to have you here with us.
It really truly is. And, having that grounded strength is going to be incredibly relevant to the situation we're unpacking today.
Yeah, speaking of insurmountable challenges, I want you to imagine a military commander preparing for like the biggest battle of their life. The enemy is encroaching, the stakes are absolute survival, and the odds are already terrible.
Right. Just completely stacked against them.
Exactly. And then the commander executes what has to be the most counterintuitive strategy in recorded history. They aggressively fire 99% of their own soldiers before the battle even starts.
Which, I mean, on paper, it sounds like complete self-sabotage, madness, really. But when you dig into the mechanics of what is actually happening, it emerges as one of the most profound psychological and strategic maneuvers we have on record.
Yeah, and this isn't some modern military thriller. This is the biblical account of Judges chapter 7. And by looking at this through the analytical lens of two incredible scholarly sources, the Holman Study Bible and the NAA, or Nova Almeida Actualizada Study Bible, we aren't just reading ancient history here.
No, not at all. Our goal for you listening today is to really uncover the psychological, the strategic, and the deeply theological layers of the Israelite judge Gideon.
Yeah.
We are exploring not just what happened, but exactly why it had to happen in such a bizarre, almost comical way.
So to really grasp the weight of this, we kind of have to start with the context of the oppression, right? Because they aren't just facing a standard rival army.
Right. They have been enduring years of devastating raids from this massive coalition of Midianites and Amalekites. And the text describes these invaders like a swarm of locusts. I mean, they would sweep in, destroy the crops, take the livestock, and just leave the Israelites starving. This was a profoundly traumatized population.
Which sets the stage perfectly. Gideon manages to gather 32,000 Israelite men, and they are camped at a place called the Spring of Herod.
And I love this detail. The Holman study notes point out a brilliant linguistic thing here. Herod literally translates to the spring of trembling.
The Spring of Trembling, that is so good. So you have this traumatized, terrified militia of 32,000 guys staring down a valley at a multinational coalition that outnumbers them massively. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. God looks at the 32,000 men and basically says, yeah, that's too many.
Which makes no military sense. But the theological problem here is human nature itself. Both of our study Bibles highlight God's core concern. If Israel wins this battle with 32,000 men, human instinct is just going to instantly take over.
Oh, 100%. As soon as the danger passes, they are going to boast. They will convince themselves, like, my own hand saved me.
Exactly. They will completely rewrite the narrative. They'll start printing the T-shirts, claiming they were tactical geniuses all along, and completely forget that they were just cowering at the spring of trembling yesterday.
Yeah, that human tendency to steal the glory is basically the entire crux of the narrative here. The central theological premise is that this upcoming victory must undeniably, categorically be seen as divine intervention.
Right. If there is even a sliver of a chance that Israel could claim the credit, the spiritual lesson is just lost entirely. So the Lord tells Gideon to initiate this massive downsizing.
And he doesn't just, like, trim the fat. He institutes what I call the fear cut. God tells Gideon to stand up and announce to the army, whoever is afraid and trembling, let him return home.
And the response is staggering.
Yeah. Out of 32,000 men, 22,000 just pack up their tents and leave. 22,000. Think about that for a second. If you are listening to this and you've ever felt the sheer panic in a room when a company announces layoffs, you know how fast anxiety spreads in a group?
Oh, absolutely. Now multiply that by ancient warfare. It's a staggering drop-off, losing over 2/3 of your force in a single afternoon.
It's like a startup CEO cutting 70% of their staff right before the biggest product launch in history just because people looked a little nervous.
It sounds crazy, but the NAA study notes point out a crucial piece of historical context that makes it incredibly pragmatic. Under Mosaic law, specifically in the book of Deuteronomy, there were established military exemptions.
Wait, really? Like legal exemptions for being scared?
Yes, those who were terrified were legally permitted, even encouraged to go home.
That's wild. I always read that and thought it was just this strange ancient form of compassion. Like, oh, you're scared? It's okay, buddy. Go home and rest.
No, it's highly tactical. In a modern office, a nervous employee might miss a deadline. But in ancient phalanx warfare, Fear is a literal physical contagion with lethal consequences.
Because they're fighting in those tight formations.
Exactly. You are literally relying on the shield of the man standing right next to you. If the guy beside you panics, drops his shield, and runs, he exposes your flank to an enemy spear.
Oh, wow. So one guy freaking out can collapse the whole line.
A panicked soldier can break a defensive line and spread terror through the ranks faster than the enemy ever could. So, ethically and practically, excising the fearful was standard procedure to preserve the psychological and physical integrity of the remaining troops.
Okay, well, that actually makes a ton of sense. So Gideon is down to 10,000 men. It's a massive hit, sure, but 10,000 is still, a functioning army.
Right, it's a workable number.
But God looks at this trimmed down, slightly more brave group of 10,000 and says, nope, still too many. Which leads us to one of the most debated moments in the text, the water test.
Yes. The mechanics of this test have fascinated and confused scholars for centuries, really.
Right?
God tells Gideon to march the remaining 10,000 down to the water, and they're going to be separated based entirely on how they drink.
Let's lay out what actually happens here. The text says, those who lap the water with their tongues, like a dog, meaning they bring the water up to their mouths with their hands, they get put to one side.
Right.
And those who get down on their knees to drink directly from the stream are put on the other side. Out of 10,000, only 300 men use their hands to bring the water to their mouths. Everyone else kneels.
And God says, keep the 300, send the rest home.
I mean, it is the ultimate extreme downsizing. He is left with a microscopic fraction of his original force. But I have to pause here because we need to address, the elephant in the room with this story.
The Special Forces theory.
Yes. I have heard so many sermons and theories about this specific test. The popular idea is that this was an ancient test of situational awareness, right?
Right. The theory goes that the guys who knelt down had their faces buried in the water and were completely vulnerable to an ambush. But the 300 guys who scooped the water with their hands were looking around, keeping their heads on a swivel.
Yeah, proving they were the elite, tactically trained special forces of the Israelite army.
That is easily the most popular modern interpretation you will hear.
Mm-hmm.
People love the idea of a secret special forces test. But if we connect this back to the core theology our sources are highlighting, that interpretation is completely backward.
So it's not ancient special forces at all.
Not even a little bit. Both the NAA and the Holman study notes explicitly reject that idea. The notes clarify that this was not a test of military skill, alertness, or moral superiority. It was simply an arbitrary filter.
An arbitrary filter. I think people really struggle with the word arbitrary here. Why use a totally random drinking method to select an army?
Well, the method of drinking was random, but the goal was highly calculated. We have to remember the overarching objective of this entire exercise. The goal is to drastically reduce the army to a size so absurdly small that human boasting becomes mathematically impossible.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the water test was merely a strange ritual designed to whittle the number down to an extreme minority. Because think about it, if the Israelites who passed the test were a crack team of highly aware, tactical super soldiers, they might still claim the glory.
Oh, that's such a good point. They'd be like, sure, there are only 300 of us, but we were the best of the best. We're just built different.
Exactly. God didn't want 300 super soldiers. He wanted 300 average, perhaps even awkward, guys who just happened to drink water a certain way, so that when they won, the credit would have to go entirely to the divine.
Wow. That completely flips the script. So now Gideon is left with a skeleton crew of 300 average guys staring down a massive multinational coalition. I don't care how much faith you have, how does a human leader mentally survive that moment?
Well, he's sitting at the spring of trembling, and I guarantee you he is terrified.
He has to be.
But the NAA notes highlight a beautiful, often overlooked detail about the nature of God in this text. God is incredibly gracious in accommodating Gideon's lingering fear.
He doesn't just tell him to tough it out.
No, God doesn't condemn him for being terrified. He knows Gideon is looking at 300 men and panicking. So God provides intelligence and, more importantly, a psychological boost. He tells Gideon, if you're still afraid to go down, take your servant Purah and sneak down to the edge of the camp.
And the visual imagery the text uses here to describe that enemy camp is just meant to induce vertigo. The Midianites, Amalekites, and all the people of the east are lying in the valley like a swarm of locusts.
A swarm of locusts.
Yeah, and their camels are described as being countless as the sand on the seashore. So Gideon and his servant are like army crawling through the dirt in the dead of night, looking at a literal ocean of enemy combatants.
And they sneak right up to the edge of a tent, and they manage to eavesdrop on a conversation between two enemy guards.
This is my absolute favorite part of the whole text. One guard is telling his buddy about this bizarre nightmare he just had. The guard says he dreamed that a loaf of roasted barley bread came rolling into the Midianite camp, smashed into a tent, and flipped the whole thing completely upside down.
Which, to a modern reader, is a profoundly weird dream. But the symbolism here is rich and deadly serious for the people involved in that era.
Right, because the buddy immediately interprets it. He doesn't say, oh, you just ate too much before bed. He says, this is nothing else but the sword of Gideon. God has handed Midian over to him.
It's incredible.
It's like a high school sports underdog sneaking into the rival team's locker room, only to hear the rival team's star quarterback crying because he's having night terrors about getting crushed by the underdog. It's a rogue piece of bakery taking down a military tent.
And the study Bibles point out exactly why that specific bakery item matters. Barley was the cheapest grain available. It was the food of the absolute poorest people. So it perfectly represents the agrarian, impoverished Israelites who had been subjugated and starved. The tent, on the other hand, represents the nomadic, powerful Midianite invaders.
So the cheap peasant bread knocks over the mighty invader's symbol of power. That is brilliant.
And notice the detail of the bread rolling into the camp. It signifies that it is moving under its own momentum. It is a divine act. God is the one rolling the bread.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when Gideon, hiding in the dark, hears this enemy soldier not only dream this, but interpret it as God handing the victory to Israel, the psychological effect is instantaneous.
The text actually says he immediately prostrated himself in humble reverence and worship. All that hesitation, all that fear that literally required a servant to hold his hand in the dark, it just evaporates.
His faith is completely solidified.
Yeah, he goes back to his 300 guys and says, get up. The Lord has handed them over.
But divine confidence doesn't mean you automatically get a conventional weapons drop.
No, not at all.
In fact, what Gideon hands his men next defies every known rule of engagement.
Okay, so armed with this newfound confidence, Gideon divides his 300 men into 3 companies of 100. And then he hands out their loadout. He gives them trumpets, which were ram's horns, empty clay pitchers, and torches hidden inside the pitchers. And that's it.
That is the entire arsenal.
Wait, I'm looking at this list and I'm realizing there are no swords. None. They are going up against a coalition described as a swarm of locusts, and Gideon arms his men with musical instruments and pottery.
I mean, it seems like a suicide mission. But remember, the primary objective here, divine glory, not human strength. Gideon is relying entirely on extreme psychological warfare.
So they spread out and surround the camp, and we should probably talk about the logistics of that for a second. How do 300 men surround an army of over 100,000?
Well, they don't form a tight circle. They spread out widely across the ridges and hills surrounding the valley where the Midianites are camped. In that kind of topography, the acoustics of the valley would act like a massive amphitheater.
Oh, amplifying all the sound.
Exactly. Amplifying the sound and making it impossible to tell exactly how many people are out there in the bar.
And the timing is crucial, too. The text says they attack during the middle watch.
The NAA notes provide a great historical detail to help us understand the timing here. Ancient Jewish tradition divided the night into 3 watches, unlike the Romans who later used 4.
Right.
So the middle watch means this is the dead of night. It's right around midnight. This is the period of peak darkness, peak REM sleep, and maximum vulnerability for the enemy camp.
The atmosphere has to be incredibly tense. Just 300 guys holding clay pots in the pitch black, and then Gideon gives the signal. 300 men simultaneously blow their ram's horns, smash the huge clay jars to expose the blazing torches in their left hands, keep the trumpets in their right hands, and just scream at the top of their lungs, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon."
Put yourself in the sandals of a Midianite soldier waking up to that.
Total sensory overload.
Complete overload. In the pitch black, you suddenly hear the deafening shattering of hundreds of massive clay pots echoing off the hills, which to a sleeping soldier sounds exactly like the clashing of enemy weapons and armor.
Oh, wow.
You hear 300 trumpets blasting from every possible direction, and suddenly 300 torches are blazing all around the perimeter of your camp.
And the military psychology here is just brilliant. In a normal ancient army, one trumpet and one torch might signify an entire battalion of men behind it.
Right. The guy holding the torch is usually just the signaling officer for hundreds of other guys.
So the Midianites wake up, disoriented, terrified, and they logically assume they are surrounded by hundreds of thousands of Israelite soldiers.
Divinely induced terror takes over completely.
And the irony here is just incredible. The NBA notes actually point this out. The Israelites shout, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon," but not a single Israelite actually draws a sword.
They literally couldn't. Their hands were full of trumpets and torches.
It is the ultimate psychological bluff, backed entirely by divine power. The Lord causes the Midianites, in their absolute panic and confusion in the dark, to turn their swords on each other.
Friendly fire decimates the camp before a single Israelite even steps foot into the valley.
They completely turn on themselves, and the survivors just break and run. It's a total chaotic rout.
But, routing an army that large, even a panicked one, requires reinforcements to actually finish the job. Those 300 men spark the panic, but you can't chase down tens of thousands of fleeing soldiers with just 300 guys holding broken pottery.
Right, so we enter the aftermath. Gideon sends out the call. The men of Naphtali, Asher, and Manasseh are summoned to pursue the fleeing Midianites. These might actually be some of the same guys who got sent home earlier during the fear cut, now rejoining the fight since the heavy lifting is done.
Strategically, Gideon also makes a brilliant geographic move here. He sends messengers into the mountains of Ephraim, telling them to cut off the enemy's escape route by seizing the waters of the Jordan River as far as Beth-Para.
Let's explain what seizing the waters actually means here, because they aren't just like guarding a riverbank.
No, they are taking control of the shallow fording points. The Jordan River is a massive natural barrier. By securing the places where the river is shallow enough to cross, the Ephraimites effectively trap the fleeing Midianite army with a river to their backs, and Gideon's forces pursuing them from behind.
And tactically, it works perfectly. They capture two major Midianite princes, Oreb and Zeb, bringing their heads back to Gideon. It is a complete, unmitigated victory. God did exactly what he said he would do, against impossible odds, using the most unlikely methods imaginable.
It really is a stunning triumph. The threat that plagued Israel for years is completely neutralized. But there is a subtle, almost imperceptible catch to this whole story. And this is a nuanced observation from the Holman study notes that completely shifts how we read the ending. It forces us to look back at the battle cry itself.
Wait, I'm looking at this battle cry right now. A sword for the Lord and for Gideon. Did he just sneak his own name onto the marquee? Because after all this talk about eliminating human ego, that feels like a massive red flag.
You're hitting on the core tension of the text right there. Think about the entire setup of this narrative. God reduced the army from 32,000 to 300 specifically so that human ego could not steal the credit.
Right.
The entire elaborate, bizarre downsizing was orchestrated to prevent boasting. Yet in the heat of the moment, as the trumpets are blowing and the jars are smashing, Gideon shouts, "For the Lord," and for Gideon.
That is wild. The ego just couldn't help itself. It's like he's saying, yeah, God did this incredible miracle, but, I'm the guy holding the torch. Make sure you remember my name, too.
The Holman notes suggest that Gideon inserting his name into the holy battle cry is a discordant note. It's like a jarring chord in an otherwise perfect symphony of faith. God orchestrated the panic. God gave the dream. But even here, in the very moment of a miraculously delivered victory, we see a hint of Gideon's creeping self-confidence.
That's fascinating.
It's a profound commentary on human psychology, really. We are so quick to attach our own names to the victories in our lives, pivoting from profound gratitude to taking credit the literal moment the immediate danger passes.
It's so true. We survive a massive crisis that we know we couldn't handle, and 5 minutes later, we're updating our resumes with it.
Exactly.
So bringing this all together, looking at the spring of trembling, the water test, the rogue barley loaf, the smashing jars, and that creeping human ego, what is the big takeaway for you when you look at this entire sequence of events?
I think this text fundamentally pushes us to reevaluate how we view our own lack of resources. We are conditioned by modern society to believe that success requires an abundance of assets. More money, more people, more talent, better weapons.
More is always better.
Right. But the story of Gideon argues the exact opposite. Sometimes being stripped down to the bare minimum, being aggressively downsized to your absolute lowest point, isn't a setup for failure. It is the exact required environment to prove that the upcoming victory relies on a higher power and not on your own strength.
It totally reframes weakness and vulnerability as a prerequisite for a certain kind of miracle. When you only have 300 men and some clay pots, you just can't fake it. You can't rely on your own brilliance. You have to rely on the divine.
And that completely flips the script on how we look at the obstacles in our way.
Deb.
I actually want to leave you, our listener, with a question to mull over as you go about your week.
Oh, I love that.
Look closely at the areas in your life right now where you feel vastly outnumbered or under-resourced. Where are you lamenting a terrifying lack of time, a lack of money, or a lack of support?
Yeah.
Consider this: what if that specific lack, that terrifying deficit you were staring at, is actually the exact downsizing necessary to set the stage for a victory you could never possibly take credit for? What if the empty pitcher is exactly what you need to hold the light?
What an incredible perspective to carry with us. Thank you for walking through this ancient battlefield with us today, exploring the topography, the psychology, and all these incredible insights. It's time to officially close out this deep dive, and as we do, I want to warmly say goodbye and remind you that God blesses all of you listening today. Take care, and we will see you on the next deep dive.